Hey there, folks. In a couple of seconds, another really special guest. Most people who listen to this program, I would say, do not know James Howard Kunstler. I met him. Are you ready for this? Are you ready? 40 years ago. Yeah, that's not possible. It was in the fall of 1985. He was already then a brilliant writer. I was a wannabe writer. And it was up in Saratoga at the Yaddo colony, which is a writing colony. I was privileged to get in with my writing, and I met him there, and I just thought, this is one of the most entertaining, funny, brilliant writers I've ever met. Little did I know that years would pass and he would start writing about stuff, not just brilliant fiction writing, but about things that affect all of us. And so he has a Substack. You can find him at Kunstler.com. Kunstler is the German word for artist, Kunstler.com. But he is, well, you'll see, he'll be on in a second. But almost nobody is as incisive and as brilliant as he is. He deserves to be very, very, very famous. I don't want to say that when he's on here because it'll embarrass him, but his stuff is spectacular. If you're looking for somebody just to help you process everything we're going through, you should follow him. But we'll have him in just a second. And believe me, he really is amazing. I'm not blowing smoke. We'll be right back. Hey there, folks. I haven't mentioned it in the last few seconds, and I wanted to remind you, we are reaching out to you to partner with us in partnering with CSI, Christian Solidarity International, to free slaves in Sudan. This is just an almost unbelievable opportunity. If you want to give a gift to someone and to say, in your name, we have freed a slave, all the information, you can click on the banner. You'll see it at ericmetaxas.com. Please join us. Please join us. ericmetaxas.com. I'll give you the phone number in a minute. And I want to throw this out. If there is anybody out there who wants to have dinner with me, spend the evening with me, I offer that. Anybody able to give a gift of $15,000 to this cause now, I will make myself available for an evening. We can spend the evening together, big group, small group, whatever, but I will give my time to that. For anybody willing to give a gift of $15,000, or you can pool together with a group of people, but I'm willing to do that. The phone number is 888-253-3522, 888-253-3522, or go to ericmetaxas.com. This is a tremendous opportunity. Please jump on it. God bless you. Hey there, folks. I warn you, James Howard Kunstler is my guest. Some people just know him as Jim Kunstler. Jim Kunstler, I read your stuff all the time, and I am, let me just throw this out to begin with. In a good world, in a normal world, in a sane world, your stuff would be published in the New York Times. Now, I'm not saying this to blow smoke. I am astonished at the quality of your stuff. I can think of very few people I would put in that category, but you bring something to the table that is just absolutely magnificent. But we live in a world where garbage is published in the once, I guess, was called the paper of record. Your stuff is just super important. So I want people to follow you. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that's a big part of what I do, why I do what I do. I want to steer you to where you can get help and clarity. So, Jim, just thanks for doing what you do. You wrote something recently about the J6 pipe bomb investigation and the fecklessness of Christopher Wray's FBI. Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, well, let's hope that the new FBI isn't feckless in a new and different way. The arrest of Brian Cole is a little bit troubling, and we haven't heard the end of this story. There are a lot of strange aspects to it. Now, we've known for more than a couple of years, at least, the old FBI under Christopher Wray was saying that the pipe bombs that were deposited by the bomber at the DNC and the RNC were not operable bombs. That, they were attached to a kitchen timer that only was a 60-minute timer, and they were planted 17 hours before they were discovered, and they didn't go off. And at the time, back in 2021 or so, the FBI said that the bombs were inert. In fact, some articles claimed that they were dummy bombs of the type that were used at the FBI training school in Quantico to train bomb squads for dealing with bombs. And indeed, when the bombs were found by, I forget, a Secret Service or a metro policeman, maybe a Washington, D.C. metro policeman, somebody, whoever found them, they did not go through the usual bomb squad protocols when they found them. They were very casual about the whole thing. They let drivers continue to go by on the street just, yards from where the bomb was planted. They let pedestrians, pass on the sidewalk. They didn't close off the area the way you would if you were, a real sapper. And all of that was pretty sketchy. There's also... There are big questions about the FBI dragnet, the computerized dragnet that they used to capture Brian Coles. And the big question is whether this falls into the category of what the lawyers call a general warrant, which kind of means it's kind of like you're going through a whole lot of information to find a crime.
Well, hang on a second. I want to go backwards. It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
So isn't the first question, the headline, why would it take them 5 years? Is it not clear that the FBI, but I'm saying, isn't the headline the fact that the FBI under Biden didn't want to find this guy any more than they wanted clarity on any of this evil stuff that was foisted on us by...
I think that's true.
But I mean, isn't that the point? Like that's an amazing thing to say.
Yeah,
what an amazing thing.
It is kind of the point, but the whole picture is getting very cloudy. Now, it appears to be true that the accused pipe bomber Brian Coles admitted under interrogation that he put the bombs there. Now, on the other hand, his family is claiming that he's kind of not to put too fine a point on it, that he's sounds like they're saying he's semi-retarded. They say he's autistic. But in some ways,
don't use that word on this program. Say semi-Tim Waltz, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, well, anyway, that he's neurologically suboptimal. And it raises the question of whether somebody in that condition could, A, put these bombs together, and B, whether they were operable or not. They were full of powder. They were full of black powder, which is another issue.
But Jake Tapper said it was white powder.
Did he say that? Did he really say that?
No.
Okay, we're kidding around. But they were full of black powder. They have all of the receipts for the purchase of the bomb of the pipe parts, the pipes themselves and the end caps, but they have no record of him buying black powder or the components for making it, which are potassium nitrates.
Are you in your sidewise fashion suggesting that he is a pawn, a patsy, that he was set up to do this?
Well, kind of. I don't know. He's admitted, as I said, under interrogation, he's admitted placing the bombs. The question is, did he have help? Did he have help, putting these things together? And look, we haven't heard a damn thing out of the FBI about anything subsequent to the initial arrest. We haven't heard really, apart from him confessing that he was the bomber, anything about the interrogation or the content of the interrogation. So we don't know. We don't know. But there are a lot of things that are a little bit weird about this. Did he have help? Did he put the bombs together himself? And what about the fact that they appeared to not be operable bombs? Were they or weren't they? The FBI said for years and years that they weren't. Now they're not even addressing that issue. So I really don't know. There's another, as you probably know, another reporter at Blaze Media. I forget his name offhand, but that reporter about 3 weeks ago said that he had identified the pipe bomber as a woman who had been working for the Metropolitan Police or for the Capitol Police and was subsequently hired by the CIA.
Right.
And that whole thing was based on what they call the gait analysis of how she walked in all those videos.
Right.
And that has not really had a satisfactory resolution.
Correct.
We don't know about that. It's a little sketchy. She's also photographed on January 6th on top of one of the parapets of the Capitol with some kind of like a flashbang gun or.
Do you think, wherever we get to the bottom of this, do you think that the narrative is ever going to come out for everybody of what really happened on January 6th, that this was a federal operation against we the people who had elected, it seems, Donald Trump? Because I'm just fascinated how, I just care about what's true, what actually happened. That seems to be what happened.
Personally, I agree. Personally, I think it does. One of the things that we're waiting to find out, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and others have been in charge of the FBI for about 10 months now. And they must know the names of the agents who were on the pipe bomb investigating team. They must know the names of the ones who claimed that they didn't have the cell phone records or that, they couldn't get this or that. They must know the people who, the pipe bombs themselves must still be in some evidence room at the FBI somewhere. And they can probably figure out whether they were operable or not and answer that question. They can answer all these questions. They can also answer the question of, who in the upper management of the FBI was in charge of those investigations. Well, we know that, Stephen D'Antuono was the head of the Washington office of the FBI, and who under him were the deputy and assistant directors who were in charge of this. Who were the guys who were the agents who lost the chain of evidence for,
well, I guess the assumption would be that they were directed from the higher ups, Christopher Wray, to bury this, I don't know. That to me is the presumption from what I see.
Yeah, Christopher Wray has never really had to answer any hard questions, because whenever he testified, first of all, he hasn't been in any court proceeding. Nobody hauled him into court, under any kind of a charge. So he's only been really testifying in Congress, and every time he did, his answers were, "I can't talk about it because it's an ongoing investigation," and that itself was an obvious kind of a dodge, because he used it for everything. And in fact, him and all of his deputies and everybody in the DOJ never answered a question because they are.
Do you have a sense that we're going to get to the bottom of this? I guess this is what's always.
Yeah, I think
I'm always asking the same question.
I have a sense that we have the potential to get to the bottom of this because there are people in position now to answer the questions about who was doing what. There's a record of who was doing what. Where we know when they clock into their jobs. We know they write memos about what they're working on. They write progress reports. There must be an enormous trail of records of who was doing.
Do you have a sense that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are all over this, or not?
I have a sense that they're for real. That they're, that they're authentic. I have a sense that they're probably overwhelmed by this and many other things, that there's just so much going on now in the country that it's really hard for them. And, there are elements of it that bother me a little. I don't like the way they grandstand with press conferences and, continuing to yap about, how great they're doing and how many arrests they're making and blah, blah, blah. I suppose they feel they have to, but, I could go for a little more modesty.
Well, I think that's
Eric, because, they were, half the country is still very frustrated with what they're doing. Half the country doesn't want to hear them cheerleading for themselves. They want to see perp walks. They want to see court cases starting.
What do you think is behind that? I mean, again, I ask you because I feel like you can help me understand this. What is behind that we haven't had all the arrests or some of the arrests or whatever?
My own opinion is that it's very difficult to construct good cases that are going to stand up in court, and they had been doing it very, very carefully over a long period of time. It's
so you think that you think that's what they're doing?
I think
that's why it looks like inaction, because they're actually doing the work and being careful about it. So you believe at some point.
I think it's certainly true if you look at what's going on in the Southern District of Florida, and what has been called, I guess, the grand conspiracy case is underway in Florida under the guy who's Quinones, the U.S. attorney in charge of the Southern District, is in charge of the grand conspiracy case, which is basically trying to tie together all of the actions from Russiagate on through 2017, 2019, the impeachment number 1, impeachment number 2, January 6th.
Yeah, all the stuff that we were accused of being conspiracy theorists in discussing, all of that stuff.
Well, what I'm trying to say is they're trying to tie all of those activities into one continuing conspiracy, sedition conspiracy,
which removes the statute of limitations.
Right. Yeah, it does, because it's ongoing. The case is good until the conspiracy stops, and it hasn't stopped. They're still doing it. So so that case is ongoing. The judge for it has been selected. It happens to be Aileen Cannon, the same judge who presided over the Lago case, which was eventually thrown out because of prosecutorial misconduct, and really not so much that was part of it, but literally on the grounds of Jack Smith being appointed improperly. Excuse me for coughing. So that case is now going on. They're going to convene a grand jury in January, and they're going to be talking to, they're going to be bringing the case to the grand jury, and the grand jury will decide. It's got to be a sprawling case, Eric. There are dozens of people involved in this, including a lot of names that people don't know, assistant attorney generals and deputy FBI people who are not that well known to the public. They're probably going to be hauled into this thing. So, yeah, I think that's the main thing that's going on, and probably preoccupies the FBI. And a lot of these other things are, sidelights and sidebars.
Hey there, folks. Quick word from today's sponsor. When you hear about rockets, drones, missiles, or a terror attack in Israel, somebody has to rush in after the sirens. That is Magen David Adom, Israel's National Emergency Medical Service, basically Israel's 911. They dispatch every ambulance in the country, take thousands of emergency calls every day, and they also collect, process, and distribute the nation's blood supply for civilians and the IDF. Since October 7th, Magen David Adom says they've lost 40 of their people, medical professionals, and 17 ambulances have been destroyed or disabled. And yes, sometimes medics and ambulances are intentionally targeted. But here's what's incredible. 90% of their 37,500 EMTs, paramedics, and first responders are volunteers. 90%. They keep showing up, yet they need the basics, bandages, blood reserves, medical supplies, ambulances, and training. If you have a heart for Israel, please give whatever you can. Every dollar matters. Go to savinglifeisrael.org. What else can we talk about? You write about a lot, and
So, people are having a hard time making a distinction between the lawfare that was going on against Mr. Trump in 2023 and 24 and what's going on now with the Trump administration appearing to get ready to prosecute a whole bunch of people. And I think there is a distinction, and I think the law will be able to discern what it is. This is not...
Okay, that's a big statement, what you just said, because you hear the blather that, it's all politically motivated, and they accuse us, and you're saying, and I agree, that no, these are two different things, and their only defense is... it's effectively to say, nya, 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 nya. They have nothing to say, so they simply say it's retribution, it's political. I don't think it's any of that, but you're saying actually, even legally, you think a distinction can be made.
Yeah, I would also say it is probably also political, but it's political in the sense that the political system has to defend itself. Correct. And the rule of law that it runs on against the perversion of the rule of law, which lawfare represents. And, the people behind the lawfare is actually a very small claque of people, including Norm Eisen and Andrew Weissman, Mary McCord, people who have been in and out of the various Democratic administrations, and in the case of Weissman, was the guy who basically ran the Mueller commission. Mary McCord, comes in and out of the Justice Department and goes to Georgetown to chill out, where she, kind of uses that as a perch to conspire with Norm Eisen at Brookings to flood the federal courts with litigation and really try to overpower the executive branch with so much litigation that it becomes impossible to discharge any of its duties. And of course,
well, look, do you think there'll ever be a reckoning? Because what you've just described, I mean, if you saw my eyes glazing over, most people do not have the ability or the time or the patience to make sense of all of this. And that's why I read your Substack, because you amazingly do. But this is, it's a little bit like Watergate times 10, where there's so much and so many players and what's going on. The bottom line is, as you describe it, the blob, these are wicked actors planning to subvert the will of we the people. This is as wicked as it gets in America. This makes Benedict Arnold look like George Washington. This is evil stuff. Do you think that this narrative will ever come out, that there'll be any reckoning with these folks?
The narrative's already out. There are a lot of people, including me, who really know who many of the players were and what their acts were. It's pretty obvious.
I don't mean out to people like you. I mean out more generally speaking. So that
look at one thing we know for sure: the mills of the law grind slowly. They even ground slowly in Watergate. That was a long psychodrama that went on for 2 years. And this has gone on for longer than that. It's much more complex. There are many more players. There have been many more subplots. I mean, just to disentangle, for example, impeachment number 1, which was conducted by really Norm Eisen, Adam Schiff, a guy named Michael Atkinson, who was the Inspector General of the intelligence community at the time, who had come over from either the DOJ or the FBI to do that job. And a CIA mole in the National Security Council named Eric Charmilla. And, they put together this cockamamie scheme to make it appear that Trump had had some terrible transaction with Zelensky over the phone. And it was all fake and phony, and it was all cooked up. But, that was only one small part, which, ended up in a momentous event. A presidential impeachment's a big deal. And the trial in the Senate is a big deal. And I think, he avoided being convicted in the Senate by only a few votes. And yet the whole thing was completely concocted by a handful of people. Mary McCord was in the mix on that, as she was in the mix on many other things. And so we know who these actors are. We know who the actors were in the Mar-a-Lago business. And you can bet that Kash Patel at the FBI knows who in the FBI orchestrated the raid and who was on the raid, and and who in the date and who in the. Well, what happens is that the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida now has to construct a very complicated conspiracy case. And conspiracy cases are notoriously hard to prove. You need to have really airtight evidence. And so, I'm feeling like you got to give him a break, be a little patient, and not start losing your marbles over this thing. It's, one of the odd things when I wrote my popular book, The Long Emergency, back in the early 2000s, it was about the possibility of the United States really collapsing economically and culturally and politically. One of the things I never really reckoned was how insane the public would become as a result of all of these things. And, what we're dealing with now is an American public that is completely mentally disordered and having a very hard time processing reality. And of course, social media is making it even more difficult for them. It's much easier to control and gaslight and divert people with social media. So we're really in the thickets here. But there are a lot of intelligent, capable, energetic, earnest people out in America who want this country to succeed and to thrive and to continue going on being a real liberty-based republic. And, I don't think that they're going to be pushed around anymore. I think that they're basically winning the battles. And, it's tough. Imagine how demoralized George Washington and his officers were in Valley Forge in 1777. And how doomish they were about their prospects.
Folks, listen, if you've been injured in an accident or someone you love has been, this is something you really need to hear. I've been talking with the team over at Legal Help Center, and they're absolutely committed to helping people just like you understand your rights and figure out what your case may truly be worth. And here's what sets them apart. When you choose Legal Help Center, you're getting a free consultation, no upfront costs whatsoever, agents available 24/7, a connection with a qualified local attorney, and clear guidance so you actually understand your rights. In other words, they make the entire process simple, professional, and genuinely helpful. So here's what to do. Call 800-575-9120. That's 800-575-9120. Or go to LegalHelpCenter.com. Find out how much money you may qualify for. Don't wait. Don't try to go it alone. Certainly don't attempt to become your own lawyer. Let the professionals at Legal Help Center handle this for you. Legal Help Center, helping you know your rights and what your case is really worth. It's funny you bring this up because I probably told you I'm writing a book on the American Revolution, and I was just the last few days writing about Valley Forge. And really and truly, people need to understand, the hell that Washington went through, that the men at Valley Foot, the hell that they went through, but they prevailed. I mean, we need to understand that, if you're fighting for something as big and great as liberty, as all of the founding principles, it is a real fight. And there are casualties and there's suffering, but it's worth it. And we're kind of in the middle of a lot of that right now. I keep saying we're in the third existential crisis of our history. The first was that. The second was the Civil War. This is the third one, and we're still in the middle of it. And it doesn't look, it's not easy. Let's put it that way. But I would say have heart.
Yeah. And, I think the lesson of Valley Forge is that the people who are in that situation and us in our situation today, you don't know what the outcome is going to be, and you're full of anxiety and worry about whether it's going to turn out okay. So that's where we are. As they say I was not in the armed forces, but they do have a saying, which is embrace the suck. You have to understand that you're going through a hard time and it sucks, and you have to just soldier on through it. And I think that we're putting up a pretty good fight. And I think that this enemy, this peculiar, deranged enemy, this revolt of the elites against the people of this country, this war that they're perpetrating on their own people, I think that gang is on the run. And I think that they are going to, end up having to account for themselves in a court of law.
You don't think they'll be hung upside down like Mussolini? Give us some hope, Jim.
Could be hung upside down by Mussolini. It could come to that. If the Department of Justice does fail, as many people are wringing their hands over, look, they're going to be at a lot of pissed off people in this country, and things could get a lot spicier. So
what do you imagine could happen, for example, to a Hillary Clinton or a Barack Obama? I mean, what can you imagine what can happen to them?
I can imagine them having to flee the country.
You can?
Absolutely.
And why?
Had a fear for their lives. I mean, I'm not making any threats against them, but I can imagine that if they don't account for somehow for the things that have happened, they're going to be an awful lot of pissed off people. Look, there's one other model out there that's worth paying attention to, and that's the Dreyfus case in France, which was
J'accuse.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
That was the turn of the last century. Well, it really began in the late 19th century against a French army officer who was accused of some kind of spying business, and it was really all perpetrated by another officer. But it took him like 15 years to get over, to resolve that legal thing and exonerate Dreyfus. And in the meantime, the French nation was really torn apart ideologically by the pro and anti Dreyfus odds, or whatever they called them. And, that was only one guy and one act. This is many, many people and many, many deeds, many, many treasonous, seditious deeds, many insults to the nation. So I can easily imagine that it would be very hard to unravel as a legal matter, and that people would take great care trying to do it to make sure they did it right.
During the horrors of the Holocaust, Corrie ten Boom and her Dutch family, as told in her classic book, The Hiding Place, risked everything to shelter Jewish neighbors in their home. They were betrayed and sent to concentration camps, yet Corrie survived and went on to preach forgiveness and hope around the world. That same redemptive spirit lives on in Ten Boom Coffee. Working with Agro Cafe, an Israeli ag tech company, Ten Boom Coffee helps farmers around the world increase their harvests by 60%, improving both the quality of their beans and the quality of their lives. So every cup you pour becomes part of a legacy, one that stands for courage, kindness, and redemption. Visit tenboomcoffee.com. That's tenboomcoffee.com Taste the goodness that changes lives. Use the code ERIC and save 10%. 10boomcoffee.com. Use the code ERIC.
I think we'll leave it there. Jim, thank you for everything you write. And you write a lot, and I want to talk to you about more of it. I want to talk to you about the novel that came out. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm excited to talk to you about that. What's the title of it for folks that are listening?
The title is Look, I'm Gone, and it's a kind of nostalgic novel. Takes place in 1963, the week of the Kennedy assassination, but it is a comedy. And although it's it's somewhat dark comedy, and it's a glance back at a nation that we used to be.
You're writing. I mean, I was saying before you came on that I was introduced to you by our late departed friend Alan Chews.
Oh gosh,
right?
Yeah, Alan.
In the fall of 1985, he says, "You want to come visit this writer guy that I know?" And he dragged me along with him. I was at Yaddo, a 22-year-old naif, thinking that I would write short stories. And he drags me along to meet you, and you're like screamingly entertaining. And then I read your books, and I thought, wow, your books are so entertaining. I just couldn't believe it. So I've loved you ever since then. I really look forward to this book, Look, I'm Gone. I want to have you on to talk about it when I've had a chance to read. I'm in the middle of writing this book, so I'm not allowed to read anything.
Is it the whole revolution or part of it or what?
Well, insanely enough, yes. That's the whole point, is that there isn't really a single volume that in any semi-popular fashion tells you the whole story. There's an infinite number of books, of course, on the revolution. Some of them are very academic. Some of them are very, very narrow. Many of them are spectacular. But I was thinking for the 250th anniversary, we need a book that kind of tells you the whole story. So I have set up myself for this insane project. But it's very encouraging, I have to say. The American story, wow. And in case anybody wants to know, Ken Burns did a 6-part series on PBS. Miss it if you can. If you can't, well, then you can't. But if you can.
I've heard it's dreadful.
Well, there are parts of it that are so dreadful, they take your breath away. I mean, he basically claims that the Iroquois invented democracy. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Anyway, I look forward to having you back. Look forward to reading your book. Folks can follow you, should follow you everywhere you're followable. For example, on X. I
don't write much on X.
No, you don't.
But
you are on X.
I'm mostly on Substack. I'm on X, but
yes.
I haven't.
Substack.
I haven't participated in any X wars.
Right, and you can go. People can find you at Kunstler.com. But I just want to tell my audience, you got to read Jim's stuff. Believe me, you'll see. Jim, thank you so much.
A pleasure, Eric.
This Christmas, as we celebrate the Super Centennial coming up, Super Centennial 250th, there's no way, better way to support it than by supporting my friend, an American hero, Mike Lindell. He's one of the main sponsors on this program. He's the man behind My Pillow. He put his money where his mouth is. Some of you know this if you've watched the program. He stood up for the country. He was unfairly canceled by the big box stores. So I want us to stand with him. So please go to mypillow.com. Use the promo code ERIC to save big on pillows, sheets, slippers, everything you need for Christmas comfort. You'll sleep great, save big, celebrate freedom with My Pillow. Mypillow.com. Use the code ERIC.